We are Social Blade.
Social media is being used currently on behalf of the State Department to basically integrate itself into the U.S.'s whole diplomatic outlook. And there's a very recent kind of jump towards social media on the behalf of the government in this very manner. For instance, there's the White House, Flickr account, which in the past year has gotten really popular. There was some iconic imagery of Obama playing with a lightsaber that some may remember, but that's just one little aspect of how the government as a whole is using these social media-driven networks to establish linkages and communication pathways with its citizenry, with people out in the world, not just in the U.S. So it's been really interesting to kind of watch this happen in front of our eyes. And specifically, I'd like to quote Greg Ferenstein, a expert blogger at Fast Company and also a blogger at Mashable, that basically talks. He basically wrote this really good article talking about how social media can bridge what's called the last 3 feet. The last 3 feet being the kind of final gap between government and other nations in the world, other nations and their citizenry. We think about diplomacy and the old school, war-making politics of previous presidents, and different policies, like people from Clinton, who really advocated, sending a more peaceful message to other countries, especially in developing nations, in Africa, South America, and in Asia. And social media as of late has specifically been used by the State Department to basically create this link, to establish a real personalized presence. I mean, the era of broadcast communication on the behalf of the government is fundamentally over. That people now have means of being able to post responses and stuff, and so it's all really exciting to be part of that. In essence.
Well, Reg is from the U.S. Reg, do you have an opinion on this?
Well, I mean, they're doing a great job to reach out, but they're boring sites. They don't engage. So they're in their infancy on Twitter and Facebook. They're broadcasting right now. What they'll finally realize that they have to do is actually engage the people that follow them. And so, and by engagement, I mean feedback. They have to talk to the masses. Now, I mean, I have over 100,000 followers on Twitter. I can broadcast all day long. Guy Kawasaki does that. But if you want reach and if you want breadth, then you have to engage those people. The Louisiana Homeland Security Department reached out to me and said, "Hey, Reg, can you help with what we're doing with the oil spill?" I'm like, yeah, totally, I'm on that, because they saw what I was doing, but they're actually engaging. Hey, we're doing this, we're doing that. So it took, and we're elitist, or not even elitist, but don't see it that way. They're internal, like PR people, they're internal social media people that see it as a broadcast medium. But but basically, the best way to do it is broadcast and engage.
No, I totally agree with you, Reg, 100%. But I think the point that I'm trying to make is that, in general, the fact that the government is now kind of basically, you're right, they're definitely in their infancy, but they're forging this kind of new frontier. The era of a real development of two-way communication. I mean, because in previous generations, I mean, just in terms of how governments work, it's usually just a very one-way thing. It's a very, we broadcast our message, we broadcast what we think needs to happen, we make policy, and sure, people can vote and get their voice heard, but outside of that, and outside of activism, like kind of proper, there's no real manner of which people's voices to really be heard, and social media can help bridge that gap. It can help establish those, two-way communications between government agencies and its citizenry, and specifically in the diplomatic context. I mean, social media, in terms of the potential to create connection, to foster relationship between one country and another, and specifically another country's citizenry, it can totally be huge. I mean, this can be a total game changer if used in the correct manner, but you're right. There's a lot that the government's not doing in terms of not being proactive enough, not being receptive enough to that communication. So there's still a long way to go, obviously.
Well, as you said, it's in its infancy stages. And, we did a story on our blog the other day, and healthcare seems to be heading that way as well. And again, it's just baby steps, because at first they're against it, and now they know that that's what people want. So I think we're going to be seeing a huge change within government, healthcare, those types of situations where social media is going to be taking part, and it is going to become a two-way street, like you said, Victor.
Well, I just helped out. I just helped out our cause. If you want to,
nice.
if you want to check out, I'm working on diplomacy on our behalf with one of our neighbors. You feel free to check out at 0BOY is my Twitter handle. Retweet me if you agree.
Invading the internet, covering Web 2.0, coast to coast, worldwide, and everywhere in between. This is where you put the social in social media. We are Social Blade.